I had therapy earlier today, and what I said to my therapist was, I feel dizzy. I feel like this moment is just spinning me around inside of a tornado, inside of a tempest. It is hard to get your feet under you when you're dodging bad story, bad headline, bad moment, one coming in right after the other, right after the other. And that is why it is important for us to ground. I know that you hear me say that all the time. And some folks are like, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means to figure out how to root down and get your feet under you, how to ground down into the floor, how to build a strong, solid anchor because the winds of this fascist tornado, the winds of this regime are only accelerating. They have been given the wind beneath their sails from the Supreme Court of the United States. They've been given the wind beneath their sails from the Senate Republicans who could care less about their constituents and instead care about the cash that comes into their pockets from their billionaire sugar daddies. We need to ground ourselves in this moment because, folks, the fight ahead, dear God, it is going to take every single thing that we have. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show, dear friends. Let's get into it. We begin today on the Danielle Moodie Show. Welcome, Damnation, with where we left off yesterday, which is with this horrendous billionaire bullshit bill that has now left the Senate, where folks had hung their hopes and dreams on Lisa Murkowski, senator out of Alaska. And I don't know why. I guess because she hangs her hands clutching to her pearls when she feels just so bad, but not bad enough to actually do anything that's worth a damn. So now that big, terrible billionaire bullshit bill is in the House of Representatives. And according to the New York Times, currently, but you all are in the chats and you'll tell me if news breaks. Fractured House GOP fights over Trump's bill as his deadline looms. And let's just be clear that Donald Trump's deadline is nothing more than I don't even know what it is, an advertisement for Independence Day that ripping 16 million people away from their Medicaid and potentially killing and actually killing millions of Americans who will no longer have access to health care, that somehow that should coincide with America's hallmark holiday. Because what we know, folks, about the 4th of July, and look, I am going to connect with my family and friends because I need that nourishment. But what we know about that bullshit holiday is that no one was free. Right? Like when we are celebrating, this is why Juneteenth was so important, right? And not important in the way that I needed it to be turned into a federal holiday, because what is a federal holiday without education about what the holiday is? What is giving a bunch of white people the day off when you don't understand that Juneteenth is actually, like, in many ways, a travesty? 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation passes and 2 years of continued enslavement and torture and rape, then enslaved Africans in Galveston, Texas were told about their freedom, right? That's when everyone is liberty and liberated and out of bondage. That is cause for actual celebration. But the reason why they were in bondage, right, is because of the birth of this nation, right? Oh, 4th of July, 1776. Oh, we must celebrate this moment that a group of white men got together and decided who was property and who was a person. You don't need, right, to celebrate this holiday in order to connect with people and loved ones and talk about where America is headed. But the fact is, Donald Trump wants to use Friday as his exclamation point on 6 months worth of fuckery in this country, 6 months worth of destruction. because he wants to be able to own this holiday, to own America and put it into his hand and crush it. And so the deadline looms, and this is where we are. According to the New York Times, Republican rifts, divisions within Trump's own party threatened on Wednesday to derail a signature Republican bill to fulfill his domestic agenda. The White House and Fisher Price Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, are working to unite House Republicans behind the bill, which would slash taxes and the federal safety net. Like, here's where I wish that the New York Times would tell the truth, right? The bill is not going to slash taxes. It's going to cut taxes and provide billionaire welfare for those that are the most fortunate in this country. To phrase it as, oh, it's going to slash taxes would mean that the average person would have their taxes cut. That is not how this is working. I showed you the chart earlier in the week. What it would slash, however, is safety nets, is people's health care. It is going to basically slash their throats and take their lives, because what else do you think is happening when people don't have health care and can't get the aid that they need? When they have to use the emergency room once again as their primary care doctor, what do you think is going to happen? It's not rocket science, because there's actual data that tells you. So the measure can survive just a few Republican defections, and that is a total of 4 Republican defections that it can endure. Right now, as of the time of me coming on air, there were 9 people that are holdouts. And now I don't want you to get it twisted when you think like, oh, these 9 people give a shit about their constituents. No, some of those people, they want more cuts to Medicaid, because nearly $1 trillion isn't enough. They want more cuts to SNAP, because taking food out of the mouths of hungry children by the billions isn't enough, right? So it's not as if they are saying, oh my God, whoa, 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 this is going to hurt this country and my constituents and real people. No, 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 don't get it twisted. The holdout is from Freedom Caucus freaks motherfuckers who actually want to cause more harm, not less. Other things that we need to pay attention to while this sorry excuse for a speaker tries to rally behind his people. I want to lift up and appreciate the incomparable Representative Jasmine Crockett, who just spits pure fire. And I want you to take a listen to 2 clips that she offers today.
Started going through the Republicans that sit on this committee briefly, I would tell you that, Chairwoman, you have 112,000 people that are about to lose SNAP benefits just in your district. I would tell you that it is estimated in your state, as your senators stated, that roughly 651,982 would lose their health care. Or I would tell Rep. Fishbach that 67,000 people on SNAP, and in the entire state of Minnesota, 173 would lose their health care. I could go on with these numbers, or I could tell you about the fact that even when we look at my state, and I know that Chip Roy sits on this committee, but he's not here right now, but we have 56,000 people that are on SNAP in his district. But in the entire state of Texas, we have 1.6 million people that may lose coverage. And somehow we have 83 billionaires. And somehow they have 535 people that are speaking up for them every single day to make sure that when they get married for a second or third or fourth time, that they can go ahead and have another $50 or $60 million wedding.
That's my favorite part. And I'm going to play it one more time. Because what she frames here is not just how the people that sit on that very committee, the Republicans on that committee, are going to devastate tens of thousands of people inside of their own districts and don't give a damn. But what she articulates is that there are 83 billionaires that 535 members are fighting for. What about your people? What about the people in your district? How are you going home? Because I'm telling you, folks, dear friends, none of these Republicans, none of these senators, none of these GOP representatives in the House should be able to go home in comfort. Do you know what I'm saying? I believe that they should be protested and heckled every single fucking place that they go. I believe that they should go to their districts with fear of leaving their homes because they don't want to be heckled and they don't want to be tormented. I believe that they should experience the same type of grief that they are putting on the nation in order to lift up 83 fucking billionaires, over 330 million goddamn Americans. None of them should be able to sleep at night. None of them should be able to leave their homes and feel that they can go out and enjoy their lives while they are destroying millions of other people's lives. It is a travesty. It is a disfucking grace. And they should be told that every single goddamn day. So I'm going to play the clip one more time.
We'll wrap up by saying this. I don't really understand what it is that y'all plan to go back and tell your constituents. I'm glad that some of y'all decided to show up, but the reality is that you have sold your constituents out for 83 people in this country. And each of our districts should have approximately 766,000 people. How is it that you can explain that we still are running up the credit card and we have nothing to show for it except for the fact that we won't have food on the tables and we won't have health care? And with that, I will yield.
It doesn't make any sense. But here's the thing that I want folks to understand. Sometime real soon, more than 5 million people are going to be out in the streets. People are going to start to realize and ask themselves, the fuck am I paying taxes for? I don't have access to Medicaid. I don't have quality public schools. The roads are going to begin to collapse. We've already seen as things begin to get hotter and hotter in this country and more storms happen. We're seeing entire electrical grids go down. We're seeing bridges buckle. And we know that they're not taking our tax dollars and putting it into anything that the collective can use or need. Apparently, the ultra rich, they'll probably pave their own private roads, like they have in Israel, right? That the Palestinians aren't allowed on because they have two different kinds of license plates there. That's a real thing, by the way. Certain roads that they're not allowed to drive on. And that's probably how the breakdown will be in the United States, that for the 90%, you can take the broke down pothole roads, right? But the billionaires, they'll have special passes or they'll have their helicopters or whatever it is. But there is only so much. You think Americans are going to collectively continue to pay taxes when they don't get anything back? Those white men threw tea into the harbor for less. No taxation without representation. Folks, your representatives have sold you out for 83 billionaires. They have sold you out so that they can continue to sell off different stocks and make money when Donald Trump has decided to manipulate the markets for the 5th and 6th and 7th time. But like I continue to say and articulate, I didn't make it up. But when there is nothing left to eat, you will eat the rich. How do you think that you're going to fend off the despair of hundreds of millions of Americans while they're sitting and watching people eat high on the hog while they have nothing on their tables and not a table at all? You've watched these movies. You see how Hunger Games and right? You see how these things play out. They don't end up well in the end for those that applaud suffering, as the GOP did yesterday, as this horrendous, odious, depraved bill passed the Senate. They clapped at the fact that millions of Americans are going to lose their health care and that children are going to go hungry. They're showing you their callousness. They're showing you how much they thrive off of cruelty. To applaud this bullshit bill when you know the amount of harm that it's going to cause? They don't know what's coming. And you know why they don't really know what's coming? Because they think that they have all the force behind them. But I want us to understand, folks. I want us to understand this. In the time that all of these terrible things are happening, Mamdani still won in New York. They put millions of dollars behind Cuomo. Donald Trump is so threatened by Zoran Mamdani, he's bitching about him on Truth Social, talking about he's going to deport him, talking about he's going to strip him of his citizenship. You think that that's the postings of a strong man? That's some weak ass shit. Why is the president of the United States attacking a mayoral candidate of New York City? Folks, you have to understand that I'm not saying that the battle ahead is going to be easy. But what I am saying, and what I will continue to say, is that the actions that this party is taking right now, this regime is taking right now, these are not the actions of people that are secure in their power. These are the actions of people that know that their time is almost up and that they're going to grab and hoard and hurt as many as possible to send warning shots, to make us feel despondent and hopeless, like we have no options except what it is that they're throwing in front of us. The fact that Mamdani went into that race as an unknown, going up against a household legacy name in New York, and won by double digits, 56% of the vote. And now they're pledging hundreds of millions of dollars, and Donald Trump is praising Eric Adams because you think that that's going to get New Yorkers out to vote for Eric Adams? This motherfucker praising him? If I was Eric Adams, I'd have been like, keep my name out your fucking mouth, so I can continue to lie and pretend that I'm some kind of independent, as opposed to some waffling grifter that's just trying to hold on to power by switching parties because I knew that I couldn't win the Democratic primary, so I'll just run as an independent. That shows how much integrity you fucking have. You can't win one way, so you go a different way. You have to see that we are in a great reveal right now. That no one is hiding who they are or their character. Republicans and Democrats are showing their whole selves. So we, the people, have choices to make. We don't have to live in the world, the monstrous, dark times that Donald Trump's regime is trying to create. And we sure as hell don't have to live in the status quo and moderation that establishment Democrats are trying to shove down our throats by telling us that we don't have any alternative. Vote blue no matter who, so long as that blue is not a democratic socialist or somebody that isn't taking money from a billionaire. Take this moment for what it is. America showing the full breadth and depth of its grotesque origins and how far it has spread. That no, racism wasn't going to die out with generations, not when you're teaching the next generation on how to nuance it, and how to flex more with it. So I say use this moment as an opportunity. Don't wallow in despair because that is a luxury. And I said this just before I came on air. I was on with Wajahad on Substack. And if you missed that show, it'll be up in a little bit on my Substack, The Damn Digest. And dear friends, if you have yet to like and comment and subscribe here, please do so at this time. But I said this on Democracy-ish midweek check-in that the first half of my life was comfortable. I honestly have no complaints. Right? The first half of my life, I got to go to college and kind of figure out what I wanted to do. I was living high off of, right, like America's kind of golden years. So I owe it to young people now who are not going to experience that kind of stability ever to fight like hell with the other half of my life. I'm never going to see the America's new sunrise, but I sure as hell am going to spend my time trying to ensure that Waj's kids do, that my godchildren do, who are right now babies, toddlers, elementary school, high schoolers. They should have an opportunity. And what I realize is that too many people are so wrapped up in their own, what about me? What about me? Folks, if you're in 40s and above, what about you? You had it probably good for the first half. Own that. Give gratitude for that. Because these generation Alpha and Z coming up behind us, my God, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. And we shouldn't have put them in the positions that they're in. And I don't mean you individually, I mean us as a collective. So we have to look for where we can tap in, where we can be of service. And I'm not saying not to rest, folks, and not to listen to your bodies and your heart and your spirit. But what I'm saying is not to wallow, because we really don't have any fucking time for that. Up next, a federal judge has rejected Trump's attempt to stop migrants from claiming asylum, because, you know, everyone in his mind is a fucking criminal. So they don't need to claim asylum, and he doesn't want them to claim asylum. But a federal judge in Washington, and we'll see where this goes, because we know that at the close of the SCOTUS session that they basically neutered federal judges. So we'll see. But a federal judge in Washington ruled on Wednesday that the Trump administration cannot categorically deny entry to people crossing the southern border to claim asylum, striking down a change made on Trump's first day in office. The ruling rejected the idea repeatedly put forth by Trump that such extraordinary powers are justified to curtail what Trump has called an invasion of the United States by immigrants crossing the southern border. In a hefty 128-page opinion, Judge Randolph D. Moss of the Federal District Court for the District of Columbia wrote that the Constitution and federal immigration law did not afford Trump the expansive authorities he claimed. Quote, The court recognizes that the executive branch faces enormous challenges in preventing and deterring unlawful entry into the United States and in adjudicating the overwhelming backlog of asylum claims of those who have entered the country, he wrote. But neither the Constitution nor the current law governing asylum seekers, Judge Moss wrote, could, quote, be read to grant the president or his delegates authority to adopt an alternative immigration system. Meaning, layman's terms, bitch, you can't do whatever the fuck you want because we still have rules. But before I get to this, what Trump said today, because Lord, I'm like, this is what I talk about when I'm saying the great reveal, when I'm saying, listen to what is coming out of these people's mouths, listen to what they are saying, watch what they are doing. Because Donald Trump revealed himself today and has been revealing himself all week. For those that are just like, oh, yeah, it's just going to be the undocumented. Oh, yeah, it's just going to be the criminals. Don't we want criminals out of the country? Ba, 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 ba. What did Donald Trump say today? Let me tell you. What did Trump say? What has Trump said about undocumented farmers and hotel workers? For weeks now, Trump has been trying to appease immigration hardliners who were key to his political comeback, and the farmers and others whose livelihoods rely heavily on undocumented workers. You know, the motherfuckers in the red states that have their MAGA hats that voted for Donald Trump and then have their workers all swept up by fucking ICE, right? That is some, like some compartmentalization and disassociation on like another level. Right? How do you vote for legislation that harms you? But like I say, Dr. Jonathan Metzl wrote the book on it, Dying of Whiteness. Rather than share this country, they will burn it to the ground. Rather than admit that immigrants help them and their businesses, they would rather them all be abducted and then go bankrupt. Like, it's wild shit. It's wild shit. So on Tuesday, he toured the concentration camp that I am referring to, thankfully, from some of the viewers here, as Alligator Auschwitz, because Alcatraz was for criminals, and Auschwitz, we know, was for innocent Jewish people, right? And warned that anyone trying to escape would have to outrun deadly predators because that's funny to them. But then I have to remind you before I go on, because I said this earlier today, and I want to say it again here. People are just like, oh my God, the cruelty is the point, the depravity. I say it all the time. It's grotesque. It's this, that, and the other thing. You have to understand where these people are descendant from. These are the descendants of white people that used to gather with their family and friends and host picnics at lynchings. These are the descendants of people who used to mail body parts of Black people to each other as souvenirs. These are the descendants of people who rape, who murder, who pillage. These are the descendants of people that wanted separate but equal, but when Black people were thriving, needed to massacre and burn down their cities and towns. When they told them, you can't be shit, you'll never be shit, you need to be separate because we can't even step in the same pool, have the same water fountain, be in the same restaurant. And then when Black people even were thriving under those conditions, their insecurity and their inferiority wouldn't allow it. So they needed to burn those places to the ground and then laugh and make jokes about the fact that they wouldn't be able to rebuild. They wouldn't be able to ascend to any other place. And then, Black people still find a way to thrive, and a Black man and his family still found a way inside of a White House that was built by enslaved hands. The depravity did not leave the soil of this country. It did not leave as people became more educated and as though the racists died off. No, it spread, it morphed, it became more nuanced. But now the hoods are off and the red caps are on, and you are seeing these people for who they are. They are the descendants of monsters. And everything that they are doing right now has been done. They're not even original. Go on to say, the moment became crystallized. The New York Times goes on to write, the conflicting priorities for Trump is navigating as it becomes clear that the scope of his deportation campaign is hurting American businesses. Oh, my. Who would have thunk it? And then this idiot says, I'm on both sides of the thing. I'm the strongest immigration guy that there's ever been, but I'm also the strongest farmer guy, a man that doesn't know where groceries come from, that there's ever been. And that includes also hotels and, places where people work. So, everywhere. Because immigrants work everywhere. It gets better. So I'm going to read. No. You know what? I'm going to play it for you first so that you hear it from Trump's mouth. And then I'm going to read you the transcript. Take a listen.
Finding some way to get farm workforce and service sector workforce. And I think you've discussed somehow a program of people leaving on a sponsorship and coming right back. Can you give us a little more detail about that and why, in the view of some hardliners, it's not amnesty?
Take care of our farmers and hotel workers and various other people. And we're working on it right now. And Ron's going to be involved, and you're involved already. So we have a lot of cases where ICE will go into a farm. And these are guys working there for 10, 15 years, no problem. The farmers know them. We're going to put, it's called farmer responsibility or owner responsibility, where they're going to be largely responsible for these people. And they know these people. They've worked on the farms for 15 years, and all of a sudden so I have a great, Ron does, Christie does, we have a great feeling for the farmer and for others in the same position. And we're going to give them responsibility for people. And we're going to have a system of signing them up so they don't have to go. They can be here legally. They can pay taxes and everything. They're not getting citizenship, but they get other things. And the farmers need them to do the work. Without those people, you're not going to be able to run your farm.
What did you all hear that he said? Because I'm going to read it to you so that you understand how important the language is that Donald Trump is using. So here is the transcript. We're going to have a system of signing them up so they don't have to go. They can be here legally. They can pay taxes and everything. Without those people, you're not going to be able to run your farm. The farmers can be responsible for some of the people. They're not going to have citizenship, but they'll be working. They'll be paying taxes. We need to get our farmers the people that they need. And then he goes on, it's called farmer responsibility or owner responsibility. They will be responsible for these people. They know these people. Let me say that again. The farmers know them. It's called farmer responsibility or owner responsibility. They will be responsible for these people. They know these people. What the fuck that sound like to you? You're not going to get citizenship. You'll get to sign up to be an indentured servant. You'll work, you'll pay taxes, but you won't get anything in return from that. But your owner will get your cheap labor. It's called farmer responsibility. The farmer is responsible for his tractor and apparently the immigrants that work for him. That is slavery. So you work, you pay taxes, you do the jobs that these white MAGA motherfuckers don't want to do. And you get nothing in return. Oh, I guess you should be satisfied that you're not in a concentration camp. That's what you get. And maybe, Donald Trump, he'll come up with something else, something else for the people that are construction folks that donated to his campaigns that are putting up these tent concentration camps. Maybe we'll put all of these owned workers into their own tents so that we can keep an eye on them. We don't want them, God, living out free in the open. Watch how this shit is going to transform. Understand the language that is being used outright in the open, out of the mouth of the President of the United States. You know what else they'll probably do? Oh, these tents that they've put up that mirror concentration camps with their bunk beds in cages and no, I don't know, air conditioning, no real walls that'll withstand, I don't know, what is it that hits Florida all the time? Fucking hurricanes? Maybe they'll make those people in there so desperate that they'll sign their own lives away just so that they can get out. And that getting out will be getting out of that concentration camp, but getting into a slave agreement with a farmer. Do you see what's happening here? Do you see what we're enabling? Because Donald Trump has convinced the population that these people are criminals and undeserving of life and liberty and dignity and respect and self-determination and autonomy. That because he has called them vermin and rats, that 77 million people say, well, they get what they deserve. They should be lucky to be able to stay here, even if the staying here means working as a slave. Immigrants pay more taxes than Donald Trump, and they get nothing in return for it. Undocumented people pay more taxes than Donald Trump, and they get nothing in return. They get hunted. They get tortured. They get deported to war zones. They get separated from their families, from their children. It's insane. But do you know what else is insane and what I'm going to close out with today? Because again, I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. That is my background. That is my calling. And I like to connect dots because I like for people to understand that the language that's being used isn't coming from nowhere. This Alligator Auschwitz, the one, the place that the GOP is selling merchandise for, where people will be tortured and die. We have a history with alligators in this country that folks should understand. Lana Quest, aka Rosa Sparks, said in the 1800s and 1900s, the phrase alligator bait was used in newspapers, cartoons to depict Black children being eaten by alligators. Alligator Alcatraz is an old racist method. Blacks for Trump, y'all dumb as fuck. And I want you to really understand what she's saying. It wasn't just used as a racist trope, it was the truth. This is from the Jim Crow Museum. It isn't really a question of whether African American babies were used as alligator bait, but the question is how frequent was the practice? During slavery and the Jim Crow era in the United States, African Americans were brutalized and mistreated in almost every way imaginable. If there was a way to kill, maim, oppress, or use an African American for any reasons, it more than likely happened. If the skin from an African American might be used for leather shoes or handbags, see human leather, then pretty much all atrocities were possible and probable. African American babies being used as alligator bait really happened, and it happened to real people. It doesn't seem to have been a widespread practice, but it did happen. It is hard to process the thinking that could lead a person to actually use a live human baby as bait for an alligator. That is why the objects in the Jim Crow Museum are so important. They help tell the story of a society that defined African Americans as subhuman by portraying them as savage and worthless creatures. If people are indoctrinated over and over again with items, images, objects, and practices that devalue the humanity of African Americans, then practices like African Dodger, human zoos, and alligator bait become possible. And up in the corner, little African, Black baby, bulging eyes, a dainty morsel, licorice drops. People want to know sometimes why I have the level of rage that I do. And it's because I have chosen to educate myself. I have chosen to live a conscious life. I have chosen to unlearn the indoctrination of this country that would have me worship at the feet of slaveholders and rapists and celebrate their achievements as something that is worthy of applause, when we should be appalled by it. Alligator Auschwitz ain't nothing fucking new. Their depravity has a long, deep, dark history that is tied to the roots and founding of this country. It's the history they don't want you to know about. It's the history that Ron DeSantis down in Florida said he doesn't want white kids to feel guilty about. That motherfucker should feel guilty about the concentration camps that he's giving tours for on Fox. At a time when ignorance is in power, intellect is a weapon. Educate yourselves. That's what resistance looks like. Now is a time of deep clarity of who this country has always been. When you say, this is not my country, this is not who we are, when people utter phrases like that, it makes me know that the indoctrination has worked. This is who America is, but it doesn't have to stay that way. That's the difference. That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. I appreciate each and every single one of you for showing up every single day, Monday through Thursday. If you have not already hit that bell in the corner, hit like, comment, and subscribe, please do so. And if you are watching on Substack, please do consider subscribing. All of my content is free. Everywhere that I post is free. But if you have the ability and the resources to become a paid subscriber, please consider doing so. And if you have the ability, like the good people here on YouTube, Kay Pandya, thank you so much for your Canadian $13.99. Liquid Blonde, thank you so much for your $10. PJ, consistently, my God, thank you so much for your $49.99. Barb, as always, thank you so much for your $3. And Paula, thank you so much for your $10. This is independent media, and every single dollar goes a long, long way, helping me do the work that I do, which is to educate. And honestly, folks, that is the most important thing to me, is education in this moment, right? Like, we don't have time to wallow. If you have time to wallow, you have time to read. If you have time to doom scroll, you have time to consume real information and learn the truth. Because we have always been a country founded on depravity, on cruelty. And there has always been resistance. There has always been fighters. There have always been people working, regardless of whether or not they were going to see the dawn of a new day, that dreamt of one and fought for one. That is the truth of this country. As always, dear friends, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. And a note, I will be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. I will be back tomorrow. There will be a video tomorrow. I will say that. Because I am spending time with family this weekend. There will absolutely be a video up tomorrow. I will not be live tomorrow, but there will be a video tomorrow. So do make sure that you tune in and that you share. I appreciate all of you. Be well, stay safe. Talk soon.